So my name's Sharon. I'm a compulsive eater in recovery and calling from Brighton in England, and I'm abstinent today. Today is 13 years, 5 months and 15 days. So it's a way of life, and I love to spell way of life, W-E-I-G-H. This is my way of life. Grey Sheet. I weigh and measure 3 meals a day from the Grey Sheet food plan, a magnificent plan for a compulsive eater of my type. I write my food down. I commit it to my sponsor. I don't eat anything in between my meals, no matter what. And I make protecting my abstinence the most important thing in my life, without exception. And it's a bit odd, this Zoom format. I mean, it's lovely to see you all. I think there's 18 of us on this meeting, but connecting with each of you with eye contact is difficult without keep looking at my own picture moving all the time. So I'm trying to ignore my own picture and focus on you. It takes a little bit of getting used to, and I love coming to Zoom meetings. Aren't we blessed that we can connect like this so easily? When I got abstinent, we didn't have Zoom. We had some very sketchy Skype. I think had just started coming out, and but I had to buy phone cards. I don't know if those of you in the UK remember. You got those like a phone card. You had to go to a call box, and you could call the United States using a phone card, and your money was chewed up really quickly. Anyway, here we are, and it's so lovely to see you all, and many of you I've met in person in my travels to the United States and around the UK, and some of you I haven't met, and I'm looking forward to getting to know. So a little bit about what it was like. I mean, you'll hear people share their experience, strength and hope here. I haven't met anybody that came to Grey Sheet because they just had a bender or ate too heavily once or twice in their lives. They were just they were just a bit miserable because they were off their usual way of managing things, and they needed some, time out. I meet people who come here and they share my story of absolute bottom, dying, suicidal misery in the food. And I didn't, I came here because I'd tried everything else, and I found nothing that had worked, nothing at all. My binges were closer and closer together, and I was a fiercely determined dieter. I don't know if any of you identify as a champion dieter. So you give me a plan and I'm off, and I'll do it like to perfection for a period of time. But there was always a white knuckle element to it, because I was going to get to a point where there was going to be some kind of a reward. I was going to be given that great applause that you've done it, you've reached the finishing line, and here's your reward. And I'll give you 3 guesses what my reward was after I'd done a white knuckle restriction, heavily fueled with usually some form of metabolic enhancer. So I'd be taking what was some sort of a natural guarana-based metabolic enhancer. It was just seed, really. And I'd take those and exercise like a maniac with heavy duty, carrying weights, running for kilometers without without stopping, climbing mountains, crossing rivers, doing long expeditions, and I'd be so full of ego, and I'd finish it, and then of course I'd have to reward myself, and off would be triggered this, what I've come to learn in GreySheeters Anonymous as the phenomenon of craving. So I would reward myself with foods that I am critically allergic to: sugars, grains, starch. And I thought that I could eat these things with impunity. I had no idea that my body metabolizes sugar, grains and starch into a form of alcohol, which renders an addict of my type completely incapable of managing the quantities I eat. So I would do these great physical exertions, these extreme sports, these long distance runs, these hikes for days through the night, and I would keep. That's how I would keep the weight off. And but guess what came with that kind of fierce determination? Maybe some of you identify. It was horrendous injury. I would tear ligaments and muscles and hurt myself, and then I couldn't exercise while I was trying to heal. And inevitably, the weight would pile back on again because I was eating the foods that I was allergic to. And I think, well, all I need to do is to get another diet so that I can restrict enough for long enough while I work out extremely. And I didn't know that was a form of bulimia. I had no idea. When people in Grey Sheet taught me that was what's called exercise bulimia, because I remember when I first came in, people said, I can't stop throwing up. That's how my illness manifests itself. And I used to think, well, I can't do that. I couldn't do that. But what I could do was exercise like a maniac. And anyway, so you kind of get the picture. And none of that worked. So I got here at 37. I had 5.5 years of sobriety in another 12-step fellowship where I was plucked drowning from a stormy ocean in alcohol addiction and class A drug addiction. Of course, my cleverest thought was, I know what I'll do is I'll develop a Coke habit, and that might help me to manage my appetite. And all it did was send me completely crazy. I mean, if you think I was crazy in the exercise, you should have seen me in the exercise on cocaine. I mean, that's not a pretty sight. There was nothing clever about what I was doing. And so I often say this, I was the fattest crack addict in the crack house. I would go on a bender, and then 5 days later I'd come home and empty the refrigerator. I mean, that's how I came down. I just binged, and that would be a 5-day bender, and so it went on. So that gives you a kind of snapshot of where trying to control my body and my weight and my food on my own got me. Not a clever place. And I make a light of it now. In hindsight, I was dying. I really was. I was suicidal, and I was miserable, and I had spent all of my teens, 20s, and most of my 30s doing nothing but obsess about my body and my weight. I had no idea how to have relationships. I had no idea about, how to develop a career that I could be good at. I pretended at various attempts at a career and pretended for a short while, but I couldn't sustain anything. I was so lost to myself. And when I got abstinent, then the wheels really fell off, I have to tell you. I came here desperate for a solution. And you told me to weigh and measure 3 meals a day from a food plan that was designed specifically to remove those ingredients that I was critically allergic to. You also gave me a food plan which came with a sponsor. So I wasn't allowed to define my own abstinence here. I wasn't given what I've heard in other food fellowships, what they call the dignity of choice. I mean, I had been given the dignity of choice for so long, and it almost killed me. So it's just my story. I needed to be told how much to have, how often, and what I could have. And in Grey Sheet, I hear that consistent, clear message of how we define our abstinence over and over again. There's no grey areas here. It might be called the Grey Sheet, but we have a black and white recovery here so we can deal with the grey areas of living. And that's what I love about this program. And it removes the mental obsession and emotional turmoil that came with active addiction. So the food's on the scale, my food is committed and weighed and measured, and it's taken care of so that I can then take care of living in between my meals. And I had to be taught how to live in between my meals. It's not something that just came naturally to me. I didn't come here, put the food down, and it just be plain sailing. Let me tell you, there's a woman in this room this evening who witnessed my almost near complete and absolute breakdown once I put the food on the scale. Like completely, I had to get professional and medical support to stay alive because I was no longer anesthetizing my every thought and feeling. And I was no longer obsessing about what I was going to eat. Is that 10, Denise? Thanks. And So yes, so it's a gentle road, thank God. And women in these rooms took me by the hand, and I did what I was told. For anybody who's struggling, I just did what I was told. And I remember hearing a GreySheeter in America say, you know, this program, please forgive my accent, it's not for those who need it or even for those who want it, it's for those who will do it. And I was like, wow, you know, there's a clear message. It's like, just do it. And I was willing, and I'm still as willing to do it as I was the first day I got here, because it works. You know, guess what? I live free from compulsion, free from mental obsession, free from emotional turmoil. I live in a fit, strong, healthy, athletic body by the grace of God. I don't take this for granted, you know. And the biggest no matter what for me in Grey Sheet was getting the fit, healthy, athletic, strong body, but still having chaos in other areas of my life that I then had to face abstinent. And that's where this program really kicks in and shows up. This is where I remember the woman who 12-stepped me into this fellowship said, this is where the metal hits the road. You know, there's no more diversion. There's no, you know, food and body and weight was a distraction for me from those things we call character building, personal development, how to manage my education, I had to learn to read again. I had to learn to write again. I mean, I had to go back to university and get support. I was in like beginners classes with kids just finishing college, you know, learning how to write an essay, learning how to read. I had a GreySheeter who was my project sponsor who helped me to finish my degree. He helped me to write my dissertation in between my weighed and measured meals. I mean, what a miracle. And, you know, as I said, I had to when the food went down, and with the help of the 12-step program of a sponsor, I was slowly guided towards those areas of my character that needed to fundamentally change if I wanted to stay abstinent. You know, this isn't a diet club. If you're coming here to be skinny, you'll get skinny, but boy, oh boy, then the metal hits the road. It's like, well, what did I need? I needed to change the whole way I lived my life, the whole way I thought, the whole way I behaved, the whole way that I approached any responsibility. I had no idea. I wanted the shortest route, and I wanted something for nothing a lot of the time. And I would never have admitted that to any of you. I wanted an easy ride. And I was also looking for some kind of a, you know, prince in shining armor who would come galloping along the Sunset Boulevard and sweep me off my feet and pay my bills, and I'd be a stay-at-home mom. And, you know, that hasn't been my experience. I had to learn to be an equal partner in a relationship, paying 50-50. You know, we didn't agree to move in together, my now husband, when we were dating, and it was a business arrangement. Like, what can you afford? Can you afford 50-50? And if you can't, we can't afford to live together. Simple as that. So, I mean, who'd have thought? You get abstinent and you get clean and clear around your money and your motives and your, you know, there's no free ride here. And I see people struggle with the reality of, you know, I got skinny, but that wasn't the answer. That's the biggest no matter what, is that being thin wasn't the answer to happiness. You know, if anything, I lost weight very quickly and I felt very exposed and unready for the attention that I was getting, and made all sorts of weird and wonderful choices about how to respond to that attention. Let me tell you, don't do anything in your first year. Like, leave that kettle of fish alone until you've got, and get, you know, speak to women who are in long-term healthy relationships in this program. It's a whole different ball game to what I was playing before I got abstinent. It's, you know, there is some, you know, fluffy, rosy moments, but, you know, romance is a complete fantasy. So if you're chasing that, you will be disappointed. You know, this is a reality about partnership and relationship, whether it's with a man or whether it's with just other women. Learning, being in service, and I'll finish on this, has taught me how to be in relationship with other women. And until I could have a relationship with other women, only then could I truly be of service to them in relationship to a man. That's just my experience. So there's so much more on offer here than just putting the food on the scale. But boy, oh boy, if I'm not abstinent, I can forget about it. So I think there's, have you been waving at me, Denise? I've just noticed how, I just noticed how bright red I've gone. Can you see? I'm very self-conscious all of a sudden. I think I'm blushing because I've been talking about relationships. But anyway, I'll keep coming back. It's so lovely to see you all. I can't wait to hear your experience, strength, and hope. So I hope I've said something to help someone. Keep coming back.